the 3 individuals, unfortunately, who are being charged with 3 counts of felony. Felony what? Okay.
Yes.
Right? For allegedly distributing flyers near a Georgia trooper who was connected to the killing of a forest defender. Okay, at least they mentioned that.
How dare you?
That he was connected to killing Tort. All right. The incident has sparked controversy and raised questions about free speech and police brutality. That sounds a lot like the last slideshow. According to reports, I love how they play this down the middle. It's not us. It's always according to reports. And I don't know what's going on with the Unicorn Riot thing down there, but according to reports, the flyers contain information about the troopers' involvement in the killing of a forest defender and urged people to take action against police brutality. I think that's a good thing. The trooper in question has been accused of using excessive force and violating the rights of peaceful protesters. Well, that's not a good thing. All right, the 3 individuals who were facing charges for distributing the flyers have been identified as members of an activist group called Stop Cop City. Originally, that was something very different, and I changed it.
Okay.
Yes. They were arrested in August 2023. That's impossible because that hasn't happened yet. After allegedly distributing the flyers near the trooper's home. It was April 2023, actually. The charges against them include obstruction of justice, inciting a riot, and conspiracy to commit a crime. If convicted, they could face up to 5 years in prison for each count. At least it's a summary. It's words, right? Again, the cases sparked controversy and raised questions about free speech and police brutality. Same thing as last time. Many people believe that the charges against the activists are a violation of their First Amendment rights to free speech and
don't be rude.
You beat me to it. Others argue. Others argue that the flyers. Yeah, thanks. Others argue that the flyers were intended to incite violence and should not be protected under the First Amendment.
Oh my God, words are violence. Words are violence.
Words are now violent.
Flyers are violence.
Others argue. Yes, it's usually the cops in this case, right? They're intended to incite violence. So some also question the trooper's actions and whether he used excessive force against the forest defender. I don't think anybody actually questions that. Unicorn Riot's great, KSW, by the way. Awesome. Indie Media Word on. They covered line 3, line 5, protests. They've covered people being killed with unarmed stuff.
I started watching them with the Minnesota
Marvin Haynes
protests.
Yeah. And George Floyd years ago, they covered George Floyd like every day.
Yeah, that's
and
where
George Floyd trial, and
they were in the police building when it was on fire. They were right in it.
Crazy coverage. All right, and they've also gone, by the way, to Palestine, and they've covered the Israel-Palestine mess from the Palestinian side, which very few have, and they do really good in-depth work. Nico Georgiadis and the whole team over there. Big shout out. Love what they do. For several years now, I've been watching what they do, and they're one of the best outlets out there. They're totally independent. Unicornriot.ninja is their website, and they're independent. They actually stream, and they can go completely independent of social media, and their articles are on their website. So, importance of free speech. You got police brutality and excessive force, which we know all about, and that they certainly do. And that it's up to the courts to determine whether the charges against the activists were a violation of their First Amendment rights. But there was actually a lot more that Unicorn Riot had, and that's why I want to showcase and contrast the difference. And now we're going to go to the Unicorn Riot story because they've got really good stuff. Okay. Unicorn Riot. All right. Reef felonies.
Go on.
This was by Ryan Fatica, who is a contributor. Again, no ads, paywalls,
Fatica.
Totally viewer supported, the way we love it. Real news from real people that go out there and, their work stands on its own and they're getting help, from users and listeners.
Let's see who gets that reference in the chat.
Yeah. Like Fatica, like Attica.
Yes. Yes.
Bartow County, Georgia. More than 3.5 months after Georgia State Patrol agents killed forest defender Tortuguita Esteban Paez Duran during a raid in the Weelaunee Forest, right?
Weelaunee.
Right.
Yep.
Officials still refuse to name the officers responsible for their death or take any steps toward bringing them to justice. So, what they first want to provide is that an update
swamp.
From an update that on May
Florida
15th,
names are pretty good.
That's okie dokie.
Georgia.
Yep.
Okefenokee. That's where the Swanee River starts.
Way down. Yes. R.I.P. Tort.
I lived there.
On May 15th.
For years.
2 of the 3 arrested for allegedly flyering Trooper Jonathan Salcedo's
neighborhood.
Allegedly, were granted a $20,000 bond in a bail hearing before Bartow County Superior Court Justice Suzanne Smith. That's according to court reporting by the Atlanta Community Press Collective. Their bond conditions are reported to include no contact with anyone involved with the Defend the Forest movement and no contact with the 6 state troopers implicated in Tehran's killing. The third arrestee was reportedly denied bond because Georgia Deputy State Attorney General John Fowler alleged that they had received reimbursements for protest-related expenses from the Forest Defense Fund and were being investigated for their alleged political affiliation with the Defend the Forest movement. That's insane.
Which isn't a terrorist organization.
That's insane. That's insane. So, after months of waiting, it appeared that activists and community members have been stepping up to provide transparency themselves. In late April, researchers with the Atlanta Community Press Collective released the names of 6 Georgia State Patrol SWAT agents believed to be involved in Tortuguita's killing. The officers' names are Breland Myers, Jerry Parrish, Jonathan Salcedo, Mark Lamb, Ronaldo Kegel, and Royce Zah. The collective discovered the names, no, not Kegel. The collective discovered the names after receiving a GBI gunshot residue report. Which
came up negative, right?
Through a public records request to the DeKalb County Medical Examiner's Office.
Right. That's the one that came back.
On Tortuguita, yes, but I don't know about the one on the
officers.
On the officers themselves, or if it was ever ordered on them. On April 28th, 3 people were arrested in Bartow County, Georgia, for allegedly providing the public with information about the officers who killed him at the neighborhood level. The 3 accused are accused of distributing flyers naming one of his suspected killers, Jonathan Augusto Salcedo, who lives in a small bedroom community outside Cartersville named White, Georgia, which is
White, Georgia.
Funny. The 3 are charged
I've been near there.
With intimidate law enforcement officer family in retaliation to discharge of duties by force, a felony, and misdemeanor stalking. During a bond hearing before Bartow County Magistrate Judge Brandon Bryson on last Monday, all 3 were refused bond and will continue to be held in a Bartow County jail. Now, again, 2 out of the 3 were released on $20,000 bond each, and the third one is still there. The felony intimidation charge carries a sentence of up to 20 years in prison, depending on which section of the statute prosecutors plan to apply. That part of the statute is specific to law enforcement officers, carries a minimum sentence of 1 year and a maximum sentence of 5 years, as well as a $5,000 fine, which I'm sure that guy does not have. These people do not have. So warrants filed in this case do not specify which section they're applying. The flyer the trio are accused of distributing printed information informing the neighbors that Salcedo had murdered Tortuguita, according to individuals familiar with its contents.
Yes,
what do you think of that?
Accurate.
Well, do we know that he specifically had, or that he we know he was one of the 6 that
Tell me who did.
Well, they can't, but
somebody's got to know.
Maybe. I don't know. But after the incident, he told prosecutors that he felt harassed and intimidated by individuals handing out these flyers, according to court documents.
One of those cops knows.
Right. So in criminal arrest
probably
warrants,
more than one.
Oh, I'm sure. Prosecutors accused all three arresters of providing flyers in the neighborhood that were claiming that he was a murderer due to an incident that occurred in Atlanta. His name is misspelled by prosecutors throughout the warrant, which is kind of funny. Secleto. I don't know if that's done intentionally. All right. But that's an actual document you can zoom through and zoom in and read yourself. But they also state that said accused was in the Highland Point neighborhood where Jonathan Salcedo resides and did knowingly, willfully, without consent, and with the purpose of harassing and intimidating him, make contact with individuals in his neighborhood through flyers with no legitimate purpose. Oh, I mean, to let people know that they had a killing cop and potentially a cop who potentially committed murder. That, I think if they had said allegedly or potentially, they might have gotten away with it. But immediately saying that,
were they trying to libel case them? Essentially, is that what's happening?
Basically, I think that's what's going to end up happening. Well, they're going to say it was intimidating,
even though they've not.
You can't prove that it was true.
Yeah, but they had to essentially you can't prove that it wasn't true.
Well, I don't think they have to be able to that it wasn't true.
I think in this case you do, because they haven't proved that anyone did it.
I think that the burden of proof is on the person that's making the accusation.
Sure, but like that's to have a legal suit in this case, someone's got to. So, like it might force them to have an investigation regardless.
Yep. Maybe
if that's what they're going to do.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen here, but whether those arrested did or did not have a legitimate purpose to be in his neighborhood, and whether informing neighbors that someone on their block killed someone is constitutionally protected speech. That's where you're going to have problems. Is you got First Amendment rights here.
Yep.
Now, the charges and continued incarceration of the three individuals maintain a pattern of Georgia law enforcement using increasingly brutal tactics against the people opposed to Cop City and participants in the movement to stop it, including charging 42 activists under a rarely used state domestic terrorism statute, as we covered extensively on here and on INN News. Until now, most of the repression against activists appears to be coordinated by the GBI, although the Federal Bureau of Investigation, of course, our friends over at the FBI, not really our friends, has also been involved in the ongoing investigation. They do great work. They're wonderful people, just wonderful. They never do wrong at all.
FBI, open up!
Mm-hmm. Those arrested in Bartow County were interrogated by FBI officer David King, as well as an unknown GBI agent. That's normal. The three refused to give any information to the officers, according to the source with knowledge of the incident, which you should. The majority of the domestic terrorism warrants against Stop Cop City protesters or people allegedly involved in the movement have been signed by Special Agent Ryan Long, who appears to be heading the case for the GBI.
More also like Ryan Short. Am I right, ladies? Come on.
More like Ryan Schlong. In March, following a historic direct action, I guess we're 9. Following a historic direct action that targeted the construction site of the Cop City project, law enforcement arrested 23 individuals at a music festival, also taking place in the forest on the same day. We covered that too. Of those 23, 3 individuals remained in DeKalb County jail until earlier this week. Following preliminary hearings for all 3 on May 3rd, 1 was released on bond. One other individual who's released in January and charged with domestic terrorism for their alleged participation in the movement was also released from Fulton County Jail on Wednesday. And we are all forest defenders. That's a nice graphic right there. Right. The forest repression
and water
in Atlanta,
defenders. And
you've got a Mass Defense Committee of National Lawyers Guild is making a statement here that the protest repression in Atlanta is one of many instances of the state deploying legally aggressive tactics to isolate, silence, and intimidate progressive activists. Yep. Right. Although the Bartow County incident called attention to State Trooper Salcedo, he is only one of 5 officers suspected in participating in the shooting death of Tortuguita. One of the other officers, Trooper Roy Zah, is currently being sued in federal court for suing Georgia State University journalism student Michaela Diet in the face with a plastic bullet during a May 29th, 2020 George Floyd protest in Atlanta. Yep.
History of being a douchebag. Got it.
That's correct. And intimidating and shooting at journalists on top of it. Despite the fact that Miss Diet was not committing any crime and did not pose a threat, Trooper Zah fired a round from his FN Herstal 303 at her, striking her in the face just below her left eye.
Yep.
The polystyrene projectile shattered when it struck her face, causing extreme pain and damage to her face and eye. Plastic shards and bismuth pellets. Yep. From the projectile embedded in her facial tissues, she ran away, bleeding from her face and eye. The damage to her face and eye caused by his projectile has required her to undergo extensive medical procedures and has caused permanent facial disfigurement. Nice.
Yep.
That's three more people, now only one more, sit in Georgia County jails waiting to hear whether they'll be spending years of their lives in prison. It remains to be seen how far those in power will go to ensure that their increasingly unpopular vision for a cop city and the world it represents comes to fruition. The opposition, for their part, shows no signs of stopping.
But what about Timmy Kinnison?
Dude, what was up with that?
Oh, funny.
That is very funny. So again, you see all the references, all the articles. These guys have been on the case. They're so good. UnicornRiot.ninja. Excellent outlet. One of my favorites.
Follow them on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter if you haven't already at Get Indie News.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
You know,
absolutely.
That's always useful to do.
Yeah, here you see Marvin Haynes rally demands his release from 19 years of wrongful imprisonment. I mean, they cover great stories. They really do. They also covered this. This is another one. If you ever really want to have your heart broken, this is a podcast series spotlighting mothers from across the United States whose children have been killed by police. You want to talk about gut-wrenching? And they literally made a podcast. I think it's 10 episode series. It's gut-wrenching. I get 5 minutes into it and I can't. It's